Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. We didn't get a agenda out, so this is not an official meeting of Lake Management Committee. We are going to meet for purposes of accepting the report of our consultants and hearing what they have to say, and to look at what we have on our agenda and probably have to plan a special meeting for purposes of taking them up. So I'll call the meeting to order. We'll dispense with the minutes because it's not an official.
I thought I received the agenda. Like,
Well, the
was it not posted in time? Is that?
Hal never got it.
I don't think I got it.
I didn't get
I got one today.
Yeah, well, it's-
Oh, we sent it out today so we could have a Zoom link.
That was never posted. That's
Right.
why I didn't- oh, Sorry,
it.
sorry, didn't.
Okay, so we'll recognize guests and then get underway. And do you have any, and Donna, do you have any? Okay, Mary, do you want to introduce our
Yes,
guest?
I think you met him before, most of you from last year. Now representing the TRC is Carl Nielsen. He was our lake consultant and we used him. This is the second year that he'll be presenting his annual report, which will be interesting to see if there's any compare and contrast.
Sure.
So Carl, welcome.
Thank you.
You.
We're not gonna be able to advance the slide anyway, so. First slide.
Can we pick?
They'll be back. They'll be back. You were here last year for this presentation? Okay, you remember. So starts out very similar to the presentation we had last year. Really, it's focused on, Columbia Lake is a nice lake. What makes it nice is got good water clarity. It's not excessively weedy, not excessively mucky. It doesn't mean it doesn't have muck and it doesn't have weeds. It's just generally a good quality water body. And so the question is it still this way in 2023? Let's take a look at the data. Next slide, please. So this was the slide from last year. I haven't changed it. Essentially, the lake hasn't gotten bigger or smaller. The watershed's the same size. The thing to remember here is the size of the lake versus the size of the watershed is a very favorable ratio. Anything under 10-to-1 is good, meaning you have a reasonable expectation to control the quality of water in the lake because you have a small area of land to control or manage to keep that water clean. In addition, you don't have invasive species in the lake. There's not a public boat launch that would be encouragement or a way to introduce invasive species. And there's no lakes with boat ramps upstream of your lake, so that further protects your lake or isolates it, which is good in this case. Next slide. So our 23 water quality monitoring program, similar to last year, 6 dates, May through October. Field measured water quality parameters like dissolved oxygen and pH. Lab samples included phosphorus, nitrogen, and other, we'll get into those. Algae monitoring, zooplankton monitoring, aquatic plankton mapping, and storm drain water quality assessment. So same program as last year. This is just a picture. Next slide, please. So the water quality results. Big slide, don't get caught up into the details. What we want to see here and the key thing to focus is phosphorus. Total phosphorus right here, this column. And what you see is anything under 0.02 is good. So when you look at, and it's surface and bottom by date. So May, June, July, August, September, October, surface, bottom. And what you have is low surface, somewhat high bottom, low surface, higher bottom. In almost every case, the bottom water has more phosphorus than the surface water. All right. And the other thing to point out, I'll point out over here is the nitrogen, total nitrogen. If you look, is all 0.5 or lower roughly. It's the same. Every time we go out, surface, bottom, it's the same. It was that way last year. And I'll recommend that you probably think about maybe not doing as much nitrogen testing going forward, unless you just want that data, because it's expensive. And it doesn't fluctuate as much as phosphorus. It's a big, phosphorus is much more dynamic, drives the algae in the lake. Nitrogen is good for tracking, really important in stormwater, but not so important in the lake itself. And it's a pricier parameter, believe it or not, than phosphorus, so something to consider. Next. And so what you see here is 4 dates. Bottom phosphorus, 0.02, 0.02, 0.02, 0.02, roughly. Right at that level where you start saying that anything from 0.02 is a problem. Next. And what occurs at those times is your lake has, this is oxygen, 8 milligrams per liter at the surface, or 90%. And at the bottom, it's 1 or 13%. And it even gets less than 1 later in the summer as the summer goes on. That low oxygen level allows phosphorus to come and be released from the sediment in the bottom, which is why you're getting the higher phosphorus levels in the water. Next. And this is a chart. The chart is last year essentially. The green line is October when the lake is turned over. Oxygen is the same at the surface and the bottom, but the rest of the year, you can see right about 4 meters, you go anoxic. So there's really no life below 4 meters in the lake. Nothing that needs oxygen anyway. Next slide. And that's really a function of temperature. So the more stratified the lake is, the lake at the surface can't mix with the bottom water because it's more dense, because it's colder. And so the wind doesn't, and boat activity doesn't mix the lake until the lake temperature becomes the same surface to bottom, and then it all mixes. Next slide. Can you see okay?
Yeah,
Sorry. Got a hole in the gut so you can see through.
I got that problem.
So here's the inlet and the outlet, different from the last slide, which was a big chart, showed just in-lake concentration.
Were those taken at the depth of the lake down by the dam, or where was your?
They were taken at the deep hole by the dam, yep. So we have one at the surface and one down at the bottom of the lake.
And where the lake, for a large part, maybe is shallower and 15 feet or less, is, can you extrapolate those graphs over and say
Yeah.
that's the case at those levels too, where
Yeah.
it's gonna be more
It's-
mixing because there's no
It's
thermal?
like a layer cake.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
So-
the layers at 4 meters, if you have bottom that's 4 meters deep elsewhere and shallower, it's got life, it's got oxygen and everything's good.
okay,
Just the areas that go
just the deep
deeper
areas
than 4 meters, which is
have the problem. Okay.
28 feet, that's where you start having problems. So what you see here, you hit the button again, is this is the phosphorus column. The water coming into your lake is generally from the inlet. That's what's at the outlet is sort of what's going over the dam, and that's sort of an aggregate of what's in the lake just moving out. What you see is just 2 dates where the inlet, July and August, had phosphorus levels coming in at 0.034, which is 50% higher than you want, but it's not scary high. You know, you're gonna have some dates where it's a little higher, some dates where it's a little lower. That's normal. But overall, very good for the main inlet. And then the rest of this is nice information, but again, you can see the nitrogen very consistent throughout the whole season. So again, you might not need to sample the inlet and the outlet for nitrogen all year long.
Would that be a result of a very rainy year?
This data.
I mean, 17 out of 21 weekends of rain.
Yeah, we didn't
Plus
focus on the
good
weekends, but yeah, I
Plus
mean,
pretty
it was
good.
a wet year.
Yes, it was.
We're plus 20 inches to the average.
Yeah.
Understand.
Yeah, it could. I mean, it would depress the numbers a little because it's just gonna clean off the streets and clean the land more routinely. Stormwater is generally dirtier. So,
Right.
but what happens is there's if you think about where that dirt comes from, it's atmospheric deposition typically. So dust and precipitation, it has dust in it, essentially bringing that phosphorus. So there's dry deposition and wet deposition. And it's the same because it comes from the atmosphere, so it's a constant throughout the year. And the storms aggregate that, so if you have 10 days between the storms, your stormwater is gonna be dirtier. And then if you have 3 days between every storm, same amount of load, same amount of pollutant, but divided up into 3 separate storms versus one big whopper at the end. So the amount coming in is gonna be attenuated instead of having spikes with your dirty water. A lot of rain will keep it much more smooth. And that might be why it looks as smooth as it does. You know, it really isn't. These numbers, none of these are high. You know, I don't get alarmed by it anyway. Flow of break.
Where is that in?
That's the,
At the bottom.
Or don't you?
Yes.
We call it Buell's Cove and.
yes,
It also shows for October though, after we've had the turnover, that, we're only getting rid of a little more phosphate than's coming in by having it,
at the outlet,
yeah,
right here.
yeah.
Yep, it doesn't change a heck of a lot. I mean, 0.023 is the highest outlet
Yeah.
flow that you had all year.
Right.
And that is because that bottom water got mixed in with the surface. and now we
Right,
got-
but it does suggest that if more water is going out than coming in October, i.e. we lowering the lake, we're getting rid of phosphate. If we do it.
It's not open then.
Well, keep
Well,
it,
on the 15th.
Yeah. it's
Next year.
not that different than if you were to drain the surface in June, 0.02, 0.02,
Yeah,
you know, so it. Yes,
We didn't
but-
open the dam until November 3rd
this year.
this year.
I'm not saying we did it this year, but I'm saying
Yeah.
going forward, if we open it on October 15th, we get rid of more.
okay. Okay,
That might be a good
question,
environmental
Yes,
Good reason to keep it.
next slide, please.
to go to the 15th.
Keeping along, this is the phytoplankton and zooplankton. This is phytoplankton collected monthly. What we did was we looked at it as algae density, so overall versus the blue-green fraction. So here it's 98% things that aren't blue-green algae and 1% blue-green algae. As the summer goes on, you can hit the button. You got 28% blue-green algae or 29% if you round it off in August. And you could see it building in July and August, and those correspond to those inlet flows that we had on the prior slide of 0.34 July and August. And that helped accelerate that algae bloom. So that's a little bit of extra phosphorus is driving forward. And then it died back by September. So you still had algae, but the algae wasn't blue-green algae. Zooplankton, you know, it doesn't tell you a heck of a lot. What we have here is rare, common, or abundant. So it's not. What you see is in August, a lot of rare. The zooplankton we found were pretty sparse. And you'd want them to be abundant if they were going to graze or eat the algae that was blooming. So part of it might be that blue-green algae is less appealing as a food source than some of the other species, and because the community was shifting, it's not going to be encouraging growth or a boom in the zooplankton. Next slide. So there's lots of kinds of algae, many kinds. Planktonic is the free-flowing, free-floating species that typically people say it's blooming. It's in the water column. There are ones that can swim and move up and down within the water column based on light or nutrients or temperature. And so sometimes you might see them. And 6 hours later, you don't see them. You're like, where did it go? Well, that's probably a flagellated algae species. And then there's benthic or bottom algae that basically grow on rocks or sediment or mud. And they can get to form large mats and then float up as they become buoyant from photosynthesis. The little bubbles essentially get trapped in those filaments and rise up. You got filamentous as a form, colonial is the clumping that algae does. Next slide. And then you get strands as well. And these are the blue-green algae. They're not actually algae. They're a cyanobacteria. And they're the ones getting all the press, basically, because of the harmful algae blooms that they can produce. Next slide.
One question, and I'm curious, the committee is, I've gotten 3 sets of pictures from different parts of the lake, Ergonie Road, Route 87, and I think it was Woodland, from John Hill. I'll have to check. That when the drawdown occurred, they had never seen this before. The rocks were covered in green, which I presume would be algae.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I've ever seen it before. I went out and looked at 2 of the sites on your 87 and here. Are we getting more algae?
You are.
Oh, okay.
You are.
Is that like the filament ones
You said
that, it's like the filament ones, like some places there are that are less disturbed because the dogs are over there, but the other side with the rocks where we can't go in, we get a green on the lake sometimes.
So you're talking about that third bottom to the right?
Yeah.
The slimy
Long,
stuff like
long
that.
strands, yeah, that's what, but it's there all summer.
It's more of a coating. Yeah.
It's not filamentous. We have a
It's
hot,
almost like this sometimes.
yes, we have a hot spot.
So that he's describing where it's, looks like wet
Cold
air,
rock.
wet air.
Yeah.
That's filamentous green algae.
Yeah.
The stuff you're describing, that the
Right.
mat is usually a benthic mat of diatoms, which
Okay.
they're just
There's 2 differences.
different
The
species.
filamentous, I showed that to you, where we had that hot spot that he calls between 2 docks.
Kind of undisturbed,
Didn't we,
It is ugly and
yeah.
didn't you document a blue-green outbreak though in September, October, and yet the concentrations that were showing on that last chart would say that September and October were not high percentages of the
we
total
got
algae.
Carl out they were clearly cyanobacteria.
Yeah.
He didn't even have to do a lab value on it.
Well, and keep in mind that the samples that were in that chart, a couple of things, those are taken at the deep hole. Middle of the lake deep hole, versus when I was called out to do a grab sample, that's. When you target the grab sample, you're gonna get much higher numbers, you're gonna get,
Sure,
you're targeting the clump of algae.
because it looks like that.
Cause it looks like this, basically. It didn't look quite that bad.
Now, thank God.
But when they get like that, you're gonna get obviously the bad looks. It can smell if you were a water supply, it can taste bad. Fish kills, wildlife, pets, people. Toxic. So next slide. And the toxins can be hepatotoxins with your liver, neurotoxins with the nervous system, and MIB or geosmin, which affect taste and odor. This is the one that water supply people worry about a lot. But those are all produced by cyanobacteria, and it's based on which species you have and which are blooming at the time. So if I go out and test it and I have a whole bunch of plain cock bricks, well, I could say it's gonna cause taste and odor, but it may also cause liver toxin at certain densities. So you need to know what the species are, not just, oh, it's blue-green. I mean, if you see a blue-green algae and you stay out of it, you're safe. But if you want to use the lake and you know that, oh, it's, you know, one of these that, like this one, pseudoanabinum, it's not, it's just causing smell and odor, it's safe. It's not gonna get you sick.
One of the reports before you came on, Carl, from our previous luminologist, was oscillatoria,
Yeah, that's the one,
yeah.
this one,
And,
Yeah.
it was a significant amount.
yeah. Yeah. So next slide, and this is, so when you guys call me up or send me a photo and say, we got an algae bloom. That's why I wanna see a good photo. This is what you had this summer, which is these ribbons of green floating in the water at the surface. And that's a microcystis bloom. But if it looks this electric green color, it's a different kind, and you've had this type before historically, clumpy blue-green. And that's Planktopteryx, and so it looks like green cottage cheese floating in the water. It's, but I went back through, Mary sent me a sort of a photo documentary back in '92, the photos that they've been taken. And that one was in, we had this historically as well. Just good to know, so that when people are calling you or you see these types of things, you know it's definitely a blue-green algae bloom. You don't have to send it off to testing. Next. So now we're getting into the plant mapping. Next. So this is the mapping from 2023. Plant coverage was about 32 acres in total. Not much of it was at the very high densities. And as you can see, nothing red, which is, this chart is biovolume. Does everyone remember what a biovolume is?
Understood.
It's how much to the surface it goes. So if it's 6 feet deep and it's only 3 feet high of plants, it's a 50% biovolume. Half the water column is full of plants. If it's 6 feet, it's 100% biovolume, but anything 75 to 100% of water column is where we color it red, because that can affect swimming, it can affect motorboats, it can affect whatever.
Meaning you have 75% is plant
Of the
life,
water column.
only 25% water above the
Top, yeah,
plants.
25% water space. So you didn't have anything 75% or more of the water column filled in 2023 in August when we were there. Might have gotten worse as the season went on.
Compare and contrast 32 acres in 2023, where were we in 2022, Carl?
Actually had more in 2022.
We did.
That's shocking to me, because the one thing I was gonna say on that fish.
Oh, yeah.
This
Survey.
experience, yeah, apart from fish, was the dominance of that algae that Carl had on the last page that we hadn't seen before 10 years ago. And it's in more places than show on this map, because this was August.
No algae.
This is an algae. that-
No, no, I'm talking about the plant,
Are you talking about the weeds?
the weeds.
It's all skinny weeds.
It's the curly.
Back up a slide, back up a slide.
Once that.
That plant.
Glassman, pondweed,
Class.
glassman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really bad, class.
And it is more dramatic than that when we were looking at it in November.
Yeah.
In fact, it's practically everywhere.
it keeps growing. So we, you know, if you think of it as a lawn. If you were to not mow your lawn until November, it's gonna be, and versus August, it's gonna be taller in November than August. It doesn't really stop growing until right about now. It's when lawns, like late October is the sort of the end. Ponds are the same way. The weeds just keep getting longer and longer as the summer goes on. And
Yeah, but to the extent that if you looked at the perimeter of the lake and we're saying that, maybe you're saying that's 55% green or worse. I would say by November, it was closer to 80 to 85% green or worse. And at that point, you got more seeds coming down, so you got to expect more next year, I'm assuming.
Yep.
So that pretty much shows us what the drawdown.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
So here's the great thing, drawdowns,
Some of it, not all.
drawdowns encourage clasping leaf pondweed.
Say again,
Drawdowns
encourage,
the growth of clasping leaf pondweed.
oops.
It doesn't do much to damage them, because clasping leaf pondweed drop seeds. And they actually, in any of the potamogetes, which it's a group of about 30 species in the state. Are these broadleaf plants that drop seeds, so it might shift from clasping leaf to something else over time, but essentially. The benefit you get from a drawdown is the sandy soils that get created along the perimeter of the shoreline is less hospitable to plant growth than muck. So by drawing it down, you get the wave action at all those different levels as you draw it down and bring it back up, and that causes the sediment to pick up and focus, they call it, focusing down into the bottom of the middle of the lake over time. So if you do a frequent drawdown, you get more coarse sand on your shorelines, which is good for, it's good for the lake. It's not good for the lake, or it's bad for plant growth because plants like the muck. But you're doing two things. You're, if you think about it, you're lowering the lake and you bring it up in April, right?
No, we're bringing up, starting in January. It comes up slowly. If the ice is gone, then we bring it up. We usually start sometime in February or
6
March.
foot drawdown,
Yeah,
Yes.
and then where is it?
It goes to-
April.
Then we let it go back up to 5 feet and then,
before,
and 4.
If no ice.
There's no ice. But
If
4,
yeah. It-
4 feet's kind of dangerous for.
So it's a couple feet down in April from where.
Yes,
Oh.
hopefully full, but usually a couple feet down.
So when you're a couple feet down, if you think about it,
And
you're
what's,
allowing more light to penetrate to the bottom, 2 feet deeper than it
Plants.
would otherwise.
Photosynthesis.
And so those seeds that got dropped this year, that settled 2 feet deeper than they would have survived normally, will now survive. Because they've got their start in April with the water level down, the sun hits, they grow. And then once they can catch the level of the water that the light's at, they grow as you raise the water level, and then they keep growing the rest of the year. And so instead of being 9 or 10 feet out, the plants go to 12 feet out. And you're like, oh, there's more plants here. Yes, there are. But it's gonna vary from year to year based on your drawdown. So if your drawdown fills up quickly in February, probably no big deal. If it fills up slowly, you now have more weeds for the summer.
yeah, but the weeds are really the nuisance in the area that they'd probably be a nuisance in anyway, and the 4 to 6 feet of water, and there had been, 3 or 4 years ago, much less. 10
Right,
years
again.
ago, there was none of them.
Again.
Next year, based on what I saw, it's gonna be everywhere in 4 to 6 feet of water.
Drawdown encourages the growth of photomegates. It encourages them to drop seeds. It encourages them to be robust competitors against plants that can't do that. So there's a lot of plants that don't drop seeds. They have little runners and rhizomes, they call them. And those plants will be impacted by the drawdown. Well, they were nice, low-growing bottom plants. Well, now they've been wiped out by the drawdown, and the thing that quickly and better colonizes that vacant space is the seed dropping photomegatans. So that's where they start to expand and become more dense along the shoreline.
See, but the issue becomes, and you're showing it on both maps. It's occurring in, I'm not sure, 4 to 6. Last time I measured over on the Joni, it was 5 to 12 feet of water that had never been there a year ago. And it was there. I actually took my grandson over and we snorkeled as I was measuring. It's becoming a nuisance. Right or wrong, it's becoming a nuisance in areas where people live.
Okay, let's kill them.
Hmm?
Let's kill them.
That might have some.
There's things you can do.
Yeah.
So there's things you can do. Water quality monitoring won't make them go away. You're gonna have to do something to make them go away. So the drawdown's not gonna make Class Finley economy go away.
If anything, it's gonna increase.
Right, it certainly stimulates its growth. So now you have to decide how you wanna get rid of those plants, and there's a number of ways to do that. I can go through those.
And if we choose to do that, what's the impact on aquatic life and the water quality of the lakes?
I can-
Yeah,
So Anyway, moving along. So these are, the good news is, and it's still good news, there's no exotics here. So even though clasping lake is a nuisance, it's not an invasive. It. I work with a lake in Sturbridge, Mass. They have clasping lake everywhere and they're not happy with it either. So there's things that can be done. But the ones you have are good native species. Clasping leaf pondweed, thin leaf pondweed, water celery are all, which is tape grass, are all encouraged by drawdown. So those will increase over time, the more you do the drawdown, and these stonewort and naiads, and the western water leaf will diminish.
We've never not done the drawdown.
Great.
Right, and so it's only gonna get worse over time. It doesn't, they're not gonna go away.
Yeah, well,
It's just
but-
gonna shift the community more and more towards.
Well, let's say,
So one year, one might be better than another.
It's your problem. Yeah.
let's say we went 50 years without any spread of tape grass out of Gillis Cove or potentially over around the or Donut Road swamp. And then suddenly it started to migrate to other areas. That doesn't suggest, and the drawdown has been
Well, there's
consistent.
things that are changing besides the drawdown. The
Right.
drawdown's been consistent,
Yeah,
but you've been getting more nutrients over years.
yeah.
The lake has accumulated those nutrients, but now it's a more nutrient-rich lake than it was 50 years ago. You've got increasing temperatures, it's warmer now than it was 50 years ago. So there's things that are shifting your plant communities that have nothing to do with the drought.
Well, and you were saying that muck is good for plants, right?
Muck is good,
And
well, they
so-
like it,
And consistently, we're having
more muck.
dirt erode from the back of our walls by wave action.
Well, and
And
dying plants and dying algae every year. The more plant biomass you have, that dies, it just turns to muck. All those algae cells all summer long cascading down is muck.
but we're also bringing in, where it had been sand and gravel before, we're bringing in, loam and topsoil and other things from the back of our walls and depositing them on the bottom of the lake as well.
Stop doing it.
Well, yeah, that's the point to consider.
I'm not totally sure. I think it depends on the property and the
Well, we show,
the
you
lake
know,
wall.
if you can, well,
A
I
natural
can
shoreline.
take a walk around the lake and show you, practically, every other property, if not more, that doesn't have a swale in back of the wall where there once was, even with the wall or higher than the wall. Because.
I got a better story for you coming up to the next few slides.
600 feet of lake wall that is not,
Shoreline.
yeah, I can't pass the wall. There is not one stone wall there. So are you saying the erosion from Camp Asawama is
No, because there are trees and roots that are holding all the soils in place, and we've allowed people to cut down trees and take out bushes. And so we have,
Who's doing the allowing? The
Well,
conservation?
the lack of control has permitted that to happen.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, we're certainly the less wooded lakes than we were, and we get that way every year. There used to be a lot more trees, a lot more natural shoreline, a lot more bushes and holding roots. And so forth, and
But what percent of that contributes to the issue of we're having aquatic plant growth versus the nutrients that are coming into this lake?
well. It's all part of the mix. I think the nutrients coming into the lake.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
This
Rabbit hole here, but I think.
is the big bad surprise of the year right here, stormwater.
Yeah.
All right, phosphorus concentrations above 0.02 are bad, right? Storm drains in 2022 ranged from 0.04 to 0.1. Right, sounds bad. 2023, 0.08 to 1.92.
This is an issue.
That's where your problem is. The next slide. These are the drains, 1, 3, and 4
I'm gonna keep-
were the only ones flowing. All right, 2 and 5 were not flowing. 2 was one by the house, 5 is one by the road.
So when, I forgot where they're.
Okay, don't worry about the pictures. Next slide. The data is killer. So we sampled in October. Phosphorus 0.4, 0.08, 1.92, 0.2028. This is the inlet for comparison. So the inlet during storm flow. So when it's raining. Was 0.028,
That's beautiful.
which is
Or-
lower than it was when we sampled during dry weather. In the earlier summer. So the inlet's not your problem. This drain number 4, which looks just like that,
Hmm.
look at the color of what's coming out of that drain. Can you see it?
Mhm.
It's like
Where's that?
chocolate.
I think that's Lake Road.
It's
I
down in
have to go
Buell's
back and
Cove.
tell you which
If
drain.
you go back up a slide. Drain 4 is right here
Yeah, that's
Should
Lake
do
Road.
that.
by the inlet.
No,
Drain 3 is up here
That's.
and drain 1 is down here. So
And
1,
that's next to-
3, and 4 were flowing and they were all kind of got.
Adequan, Lake Road, and Woodland Terrace. Wow.
So, and keep in mind, these are what we sample. This is
No saying that the other ones draining in the lake aren't as bad.
I know.
Yeah.
correct. So this is what we sample. It's a subset of what might be flowing. And I don't know where that comes from. Drain 4, like what contributes to drain 4 that's causing these high numbers. So the next slide, go down a couple. You know, this 1.92 is like 100 times higher than it should be.
Gee.
This gets better. You think this is fine?
Coming down.
So the phosphorus load, which is how many kilograms of phosphorus is coming in during the year, if you take.
Uh-oh,
Oh, well, that was it, folks. Thank you very much.
I went crazy.
So is that because we had a lot more rain and it flowed more crap off the roads into the lake?
Mm-mm.
No?
No, it's,
I wish.
Oh, no.
This is coming from farmland if it's Lake Road.
Who's farm? There.
Seriously,
So,
seriously.
what we're also
The farm right-
alluding to, Carl, there may be some domestic, contribution.
You're not bad.
there's something happening here. There's something.
But there's some.
So-
It flows down.
Back to the loading. So when you take, if you assume storm flow is 20% of the time, which is 1 out of every 5 days, you're getting some storm flow. This discharge of 0.2 cubic feet per second times this milligrams per liter yields 14 kilograms of phosphorus per year from storm drain 1. Storm drain 2, because it has such low flow, you can ignore it. It's a problem, but don't get worked up over it. This one, lots of flow and filthy, 77 kilograms of
And
phosphorus.
which one is that? Where's
Which
that?
one is that?
Storm drain 4.
Or
It
in
looks just like
Bill's
that.
Cove.
That's
Across
Lake
the
Road.
street from your house.
Great Wars Lake.
I'm gonna have to fix that.
No,
So-
Bill's Cove.
Oh, it's, yeah.
Buell's
which is
Cove.
Buell's Cove, but it
Coming
comes
off the
down-
lake.
It's
Yeah.
crossing Lake in Erdoney.
Is it over by the log cabin and between England's and the log cabin?
It's, Anglerts and Pochi. Bill
Right.
Pochi, yeah, that
It's
was.
in, there's one that looks like that?
So is that,
Oh, yeah.
Where you
I
at?
don't remember seeing it.
Oh, yeah.
That's 'cause you can't get
Actually,
in there.
it's broken too.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
Starting to break
on
down.
Lake, well, just on the other side of the driveway.
Can you put a
No,
filter
no,
on?
but that's where it is. I think that's the outlet.
Can you use a fossil?
No, you need to fix it. So this is,
Fix it.
and then the inlet itself, which is flowing at a much faster clip. Because it's so clean, it's only 13 kilograms during storms.
So that's up in Pond.
So your inlet, that whole big watershed that's coming from down below isn't a problem.
Wow.
It's this drain and that drain. The inlet during dry weather brings in another 35, so 13 plus 35, that's your inlet, the main inlet So if you were doing a stormwater work, nothing related to the inlet and the bigger watershed is important, it's those storm drains. That's 140 kilograms of phosphorus flowing in those flowing systems. Out of, the next slide. Last year, we calculated your lake gets 202 kilograms a year on average. We put you down here. 140 of it's coming in from those drains, of which 77 is coming in from storm drain 4.
Jeez.
So if you want to keep your lake cleaner, clean up storm drain 4.
Well, how do you do that?
We'll get to that.
Okay,
And we just put in a new culvert to save someone's driveway.
Oh,
That goes into that.
yeah, but it's the same water, it's just only used if it flows the first one,
Yeah.
I-
It still goes into the same drain.
right?
I suspect this year you weren't down here, I think because of the blooms, you were somewhere on this curve. Which this was an average calculated based on what we sampled last year. But this year gives me more data and it I tend to think you were above 240 kilograms for this year.
You don't have a slide that shows that.
I wasn't doing nutrient budgets this year.
Oh,
Separate exercise. So that's just some perspective, having that information lets you understand what to prioritize in your
Crap.
goals for fixing up water clarity.
Hmm?
Next slide,
No, someone wants in.
next slide. Sorry. So sources,
Hmm.
these are your storm drains, that's one, discharge runoff of your inlet,
I'd have to
groundwater, we don't
shrink our,
have an assessment
Sure.
of, which would be septic and natural groundwater. And is it on septic or is everyone on town sewer?
all
Septic,
septic. All septic.
So
which is
that,
very concerning.
that hasn't been assessed. I don't know, we go out and assess groundwater in shorelines and we can tell you what that number is. The other thing that we haven't assessed is how much is coming out of the sediment itself.
Hmm.
And that's a number that I can calculate if I have some sediment quality data.
Mhm.
And then precipitation, like I said, it comes dry deposition and wet deposition. You can't fix that. That's gonna be what it is. You can't control that. Rainwater is above 0.02. So the lake, 0.02 is sort of that critical level.
Yeah.
The rain that falls on the lake is higher than the critical level. So what you want ideally is your rain to hit the ground and filter in through the ground, clear out the phosphorus and have clean water coming in through the ground or then treated through your stormwater system and
let
then.
me, I have to let someone in, I'll be right back.
You're expecting then hopefully the groundwater is coming in at less than what the rain is dropped.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're doing with our new.
Well, and also you can fix your stormwater to be significantly cleaner too.
Right, but right now,
Hmm.
what we've spent a bunch of years doing is, taming the runoff by having zoning regulation controls that require it to be put into the ground as opposed to let the runoff.
Yeah.
Come down through the lawn and go out, so we're
Plus.
don't need to focus on that at the moment, we need to focus on the stuff that's coming in.
You're talking the nutrient allocation.
Yeah, the nutrient allocation is taking care of the runoff
Yeah,
part, other than what's going through the storm drain,
yeah.
and that's,
No, I agree. That was the low hanging fruit that happened 25 years ago when they developed the watershed management plan. The higher fruit is stormwater and probably septic, but
And
stormwater,
possibly
this is definitely demonstrating stormwater. Hmm.
You get what I mean?
No, I'm trying to figure out where my
Participants.
participants are.
I'll go in the upper, to the right of that, to the right of that, the dots.
What was it? Call that.
I don't know who's trying to
You
get
gotta
in.
move that thing,
This thing's out of the way.
just drag it out of the way. Then hit those three dots again, in the upper right.
These
Right
Yeah.
there. Ah,
close slide on refresh view.
okay.
No. I don't know how to get back. That's, wait,
Looks like you lost Karen Lewis, you lost.
oh, we lost, she actually left.
I don't see her up there anymore. She was on the permit list.
Oh, that's probably what we
Sure.
heard, blank. Okay.
Yep.
All right, let me go back.
Fell asleep.
Okay, sir. Hi, Greg.
Okay, now, hold on. Slideshow, start from current. There we go. I'm back.
Drag it out of the way.
Oh, I know. You need a,
Alright, so that's
What do
sort
they
of
call
where
the
your
high school?
options are, that's what's coming in, and you can't fix that one. But you can fix that one, you can fix that one, you can fix that one, and you can fix that one if you need to. Next slide. So how do you keep it nice? We like what it is, but we don't like where it's heading. You know, monitoring and tracking things are helpful because you get this type of feedback. You gotta address the storm drainage at some point. It's. We saw it being a problem in 2022. It is way bigger than we thought it was in 2022 with those types of numbers. When you see phosphorus that high, there's gotta be an illegal hookup to that storm drain. Wastewater somehow, or someone's got a waste pile of manure or something near that drainage somewhere. It's just, it can't, that's just so nutrient rich. And the nitrogen was high too. That you're.
So horse farm next to you.
know too.
So it's.
farm?
Uh-oh.
That goes right into the brook.
Not Kristen.
Well, the brook is clean. We're good with the brook.
Alright.
There's a storm, there's a storm water drain. On
On the property.
the property, and the manure pile is right next
Do you know how easy that's to fix? That's great.
Move the pile.
Move the pile or put some.
Is that next to
over it.
Joshua Strauss, that property?
Yes.
So that's a lot. That's nice. That's easier than fixing a lot of infrastructure, so. But that's a landowner issue, not.
Do they still
Not
have,
a plan.
and do they still have horses? Do they still have horses there? Oh.
But
God, if that was it would be so easy.
put nutrients right in. Doing what you're doing with limiting development and managing the land, as you had mentioned, is appropriate and should continue to be done. The other piece is the sediment phosphorus contribution. We don't know what that is. We're recommending, I think in our report, we recommended collecting sediment samples from the bottom of the lake to see how high is the phosphorus currently. And then we recommend you check it every 5 years to see. You know, you're not, year to year fluctuations aren't gonna happen, but when you take a sediment grab, you're taking essentially 4 or 5 inches of the top sediment, mixing it up and sending it to a lab. So after you accumulate another year's worth of material, you take a grab and see is it getting worse and how much worse. You know, continue to monitor it, looking for new exotics. If you get fanwort or milfoil in the lake or hydrilla, which is now coming out into a lot of lakes, it gets way worse than clasting. Clasting leaf is wonderful if you have those plants. So be glad you have that. And if you do get invasives, they need to be addressed like right away. Like cheaper and faster to go out and hand pick them by divers than wait until they cover 32 acres and have to hire divers because you'll never get it done. And the muck, you know, just continuing to manage the algae and plant growth to reasonable levels will keep the muck from being too full. And the drawdown manages the muck along that shoreline as we talked about. So continuing to do that is a good thing. Next year, same monitoring, same plants, storm drain should continue. It'd be great to say we fix the storm drain between now and then and be able to show cleaner water at the storm drain during a rain event. And then consider dropping the nitrogen or at least reducing the amount of testing you do for that to save some lab costs. It doesn't affect our contract, it's your lab contract. And then add the sediment sampling once every 5 years. And that's.
Can we go back to the last slide?
Sure.
Should we've assessed 4 storm drains. Should we be adding,
We said 5, but only 3 were flowing.
okay, but there are more than 5. shouldn't we continue to, and maybe?
Yep.
Assess all the rest or elevate the importance of that, because if there's,
I think that's a great bridge to what might be suggested or
Yeah,
recommended.
we would suggest to do that. If you know where they are, it's more helpful than if we're spending time and effort searching for them.
Yeah, we can.
So if you can give me a map or mark up a map and say, look, we have drains at these locations. Then it makes it easy for James and whoever's with them to go out and hit it during a storm event.
Well, we certainly know where the catch basins are. It's a question of where the outlets are.
It's where the outlets are.
Yeah.
So you might have multiple catch basins hooking to one outlet.
walk around the lake right now when the water's all down, we can find,
Double that
yeah.
Right.
with one walk around.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
That's a good way to do it. We
During a
do
rainstorm.
sample
Wait till February.
Now,
Frozen.
during, if
sorry.
it rains, like it's gonna rain on Sunday, we can sample while the lake's drawn down. Because one of the challenges we have when we sample when the lake's full is
Is
the drains are below the water line and we don't see them.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm,
that,
And so if you, and it doesn't have to be now, it could be in the spring, but a storm event in the spring before the water comes all the way up, we can. Still put a boat in and
Sure.
access everything, but that might be something worth thinking about doing as well. But ultimately, if you can find these little hotspots and you have a lot more local knowledge than I do. I work in Horse Farm right out there, so that information. You're gonna know who's suspect, and probably have a neighbor that you can talk to them as opposed to me saying the market for the town and I'm looking for, It's better to come from a neighbor, so that's what I think you guys can do to. Advance things and help clean it up. And then, that's the goal, keep it clean, and the less nutrient you have going in, the fewer algae blooms you'll have, the happier people will be. At this point, the amount of sediment that's accumulated is gonna keep fueling weed growth, so. You could have clean water coming in, you're gonna have the same amount of weed growth or more. It's only gonna get more over time, because that's the nature of lakes aging, they accumulate sediment and weeds, as they get shallower.
What about, you had said, earlier, the lack of oxygen was hurting, and there are ways of, trying to increase oxygen in the bottom or otherwise locking phosphorus in the sediment. And you're not making any of those recommendations.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know, because I haven't sampled the phosphorus in the sediment yet. So if I go out and measure phosphorus in the sediment and it's 400 reads per kg, milligrams per kilogram or higher, then you have a phosphorus problem in your sediment, and then we can try to figure out what to do about it. But there's aeration is one option, artificial aeration.
Just the lack of oxygen at the bottom now isn't sufficient to start thinking about that.
Oh, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, but doing anything.
Well, no, because for instance, I work on a lake. In Worcester called Indian Lake. It's got 28 feet in one area, like a pretty good size area, probably 40 acres of the area. Goes anoxic every summer, the lake turns green every summer. I figured, oh, this sediment's gonna be filthy. I went out and sampled it and I'm like, it's really it was like 150 milligrams per kilogram. Pretty clean. And it's in the middle of Worcester and you'd think, oh, it'd be filthy. It wasn't. So their problem wasn't related to their sediment, it was related to their incoming stormwater, and so that's what we worked with them on. But I had thought for sure there'd be a candidate for Allen. They weren't.
is this
In
like
con-
budget for Al?
But this lake is, if the sediment's high, we did a treatment this past summer. Probably the largest treatment in Massachusetts. Maybe ever. And it was in Sturbridge, Mass. 225 acre lake, 80 feet deep. And full of trout, beautiful. Stocked by the state with brown trout and rainbows. And it was. We put in 385,000 gallons of alum. In 4 days. Turned out beautiful. The thing that people liked about it is the cute, like they had a lake similar to yours where they were getting algae growing on rocks along the shoreline. Algae wasn't really blooming badly. They didn't have, their blooms were less than yours. Their clarity was better than yours, but the state to be proactive and actually get ahead of problems occurring rather than trying to take a lake that had sort of gone downhill and restore it. They wanted to prevent it and keep it clean and try to keep it as a trout lake, because that's what they were concerned with, is losing the trout population. And the algae along the shoreline is gone. It's like, they used to have crayfish everywhere. No crayfish now, but hopefully the crayfish will come back because they can't have algae growing on the rocks, or their eggs get, when they lay eggs on the undersides of the rocks, they get all lack of oxygen and they don't hatch. So we're hoping that the restoration effort works, but everyone around the lake is very happy and went off without a hitch.
So right now, you're recommending beyond water quality assessment, which is the stormwater assessment approach. A year ago or more, you sent me an email and said if we were to target X number, I think it was 10, that assessment would be in $25,000 to $30,000.
No,
Is that different?
no, that's different.
Okay,
So-
tell me the difference.
So here's the thing, is grabbing samples from your drains is pretty easy. We're out there, it's just a day's worth of effort, and that whether I'm sampling 10 drains or 15 drains or 20 drains, it's all about a day's worth of effort to get to them. The lab costs go up, but you guys are paying those directly. The difficult part is if I get a drain that's dirty, where is the dirt coming from? Where is the problem? That's where you start to have this iterative storm drain assessment process where you say, we got catch basins that feed this, they go up these 2 streets, and you want to sample a catch basin here and a catch basin up there, and see does it get dirty as you go down?
That's the next.
And where, if you got multiple lines coming in, are they both equally dirty, or is one really dirty? Then you follow that line or trunk until you isolated the source. And if for instance, it was that filthy and it wasn't a horse farm, and you said, well, boy, this is storm drain and it runs along, you can easily have someone that hooked what they thought was going to a septic tank into they hook it into a storm drain line illegally by the wrong plumbing.
Right.
So they don't, because they're digging and it's in someone's yard. So it's a matter of who's doing the work and when it was done and those types of things, but it may not have always been dirty, or it could have been that way since they built the house. I have no idea. But finding it and doing those assessments, it's really hard to tell you how long it's gonna take, because I don't know what the storm drain system looks like yet. But if some towns, I don't know if Columbia has it, some towns have their storm drains all mapped for the DPW, so they know
We
where
tried.
the catch basins are and what drains they flow to.
Our road foreman just retired after what, 37 years? He's still available. We could hire him as a consultant.
Well, some towns have that information and then they get it into GIS where you've got map layers, and then a consultant comes in, it becomes a little more economical for us to.
The other thing is we do have open swales.
Yep.
And drain ditches that drain into
Yeah.
the drains, they're all not coming from catch basins.
Yep,
Right.
okay,
They're coming yard drains.
so they go in
those types.
and then it's just a culvert under a road into the lake.
Well, that bad drain has a lot of open swales
Yeah.
coming to it,
And
side of the road.
the good news is swales generally do clean up the water a little bit. So that's a plus. And they can be actually enhanced to infiltrate stormwater a little bit, so that the first flush at least infiltrates into the ground below the swale. For pretty low money, where you're just cleaning out dirt and putting in leaching gravel, and sometimes with a sub drain, so it has a place to go.
Well, the town's gonna have some experience in that.
So what next actions would you suggest that are economically?
I mean,
We should get on that, though.
For the upcoming year, you can get.
Make the landowners do it.
sample,
They won't agree.
All the drains,
fighting.
and then grab a sample. Add that to your 2024 monitoring program, cut back on the nitrogen to save some costs, and you'll probably be. That's all you can really do next year. You can't really start fixing problems unless you know where the problem is.
If you monitor the outlets. You can do it in the winter time, you don't even need a boat, because you just walk around.
Right, and that would be great.
The,
That might be a good next step. Is that recommendation?
Okay. I can do that. I can send you, yeah, purple.
It's good
you're
after.
cutting back on nitrogen rather than eliminating it at all, so at least we have some data points from year to year. Would you go every other month or what, twice a year? What would you suggest would be?
I'd say you could do it twice out of the 6 months and be more than covering yourself.
Every little bit helps.
Yeah, I mean, I think total nitrogen is $45 a sample. And then you've got nitrate, nitrogen, and nitrite, nitrogen, and total nitrogen is just nitrate plus nitrite plus TKN added up. If you wanted to, you could get rid of all those little parameters and just look at total nitrogen for that one cost rather than all the little pieces. And if total nitrogen gets high, you know something is high, so then you can go
Then you
more
go back to
sampling,
them.
right? But as far as a first alert, trying to make sure your nitrogen is in the chat, just looking at total nitrogen and doing it a couple, save you probably a couple $100 every round of sample, at least, well, a couple $100 per sample.
Would you be suggesting, 2 out of 6, leave it to you to randomly decide when to put them in, or would they be, June and October?
I would do June and September. That September or October, when you're getting close to your lake turnover,
And what would you do then?
Total nitrogen,
just the nitrogen sampling instead of doing it every month.
but I'm only doing total nitrogen
Yeah.
at those times as opposed to
Yeah.
breaking it down. Worry about breaking it down if you got something out of line.
You mentioned killing the weeds. What kind of a project is that?
Well, it depends. So herbicides are one approach, that's probably the cheapest. Harvesting works with curly leaf, clasping leaf. But you gotta harvest it before the seeds form, and it's expensive. And you have to do it every year. And so it's not something that's a one and done.
What happens, I mean, if we do nothing, I'm willing to predict that we're gonna have self-harvesting by people that don't want it in their swimming areas.
Which is fine,
Is that gonna create any kind of issue or whatever? So
no issue.
if it starts to be high towards the end of July and they wanna go down and yank it up for 10 feet,
Perfect.
that's fine.
Have at it.
What about the
However,
seeds?
is there not a timing because of the seeds?
Well, if you do it after the seeds drop, you end up, it's getting rid of the weed, but it's not getting rid of next year's weed.
Right.
So when do the seeds drop?
In July or August, you're eating the seed drop,
Seed drop is usually when?
you know.
So early in the spring?
Oof.
Or
You
early
can
in
do
the-
it anytime before July ends, really.
Before end of July.
Yeah.
We sent a bulletin out.
And you can rake it, you can, anything, they make these
Lake break.
lake rakes that they look, I think they use them to rake sand traps, actually, is what they're for, but they make them so that you can rake out the weeds, and they're very effective, and you just bring the whole plant up on shore and compost it,
Dry it out.
dry it out and compost it. You know, put it-
We sent a bulletin out based on my conversation with you to discourage people during the winter because of the seed drop.
Mhm.
But what you're saying is early up until June, July.
It's gonna, the seeds are gonna drop anyway,
Okay,
so if you go in after in rake, it's only for your own personal benefit. If you do it before the seeds drop, you're gonna make less work for yourself the following year.
Following year. Okay, so the window is more early spring, early summer.
Summer, yeah, so if you get in there before,
Are any permits required?
if individuals do it, no.
Okay.
If individuals organize as a group, yes.
That's got out of ripples.
Well, it's one of those things, but the area of impact gets too big.
Do it up until July.
Yes.
It's high enough in the middle at the end of July for people to see it and get at it, and that's fine, and even if they do it in August, they're always, Carl saying it's only, and if they wait till September, then it's already dropped out, and they can rake it out when the water's going down. Because it's floating low and it's easier to get, but you've already planted next year's crop at that point.
That's right. And then they also made
But do
an
they,
electric cutter, if you're interested in that, that basically is a cutter head that does this sickle type cut, and it lowers down off of the back of your boat
Really?
or off the side of your boat, and it's just clamped onto the side of the boat, it has a little motor, and it runs on a battery, and it does, and it's about
Like a hedge clip.
hedge clipper, it looks like a big hedge clipper, but
Yeah.
it's on a pole, and you can lower it to whatever
Yeah.
depth you wish.
well,
And you drive around and
yeah,
people.
but
mow
then
in front of their
we'll be
yard.
having it floating all around the lake at that point.
But it's
Because
not
our crops are doing it.
But it's not a problem if the seeds aren't there. If you do it after the seeds and it's floating. around.
Yeah, but floating around is a nuisance too, but yeah, I hear what you're saying, you don't wanna, and we wanna discourage it in the seed flow anyway, because the neighbors could be objecting if the seeds are drifting, down.
I mean,
Yeah, right now,
yeah.
and you're happy. to do it.
But this year's growth, let's say that was low in the water when it was going down in November. Taking that out was probably worthless because those plants don't grow back, it's the new seeds, right? So the only thing you're getting out at that point is getting the biomass out. And taking that phosphate out of the lake,
And
so.
coming back.
But so it's worthwhile doing that, like breaking your lake bottom. But it's not going to reduce the plants that are coming back next year.
Yeah,
Would raking the gravel, like we're down 6 feet, would raking the gravel do anything to these seeds that are there?
They'll probably growing in the gravelly area.
You know what I mean, by covering them or something, and you rake them up, I
Yeah,
think
but that's a whole,
disturbing it would probably be like, plowing the field.
well, there's permits that'll be required.
Well, I mean, on an individual,
Manipulate.
basis, you know,
Yeah.
if I went out in front of my house and started raking.
if
I
you,
don't have it, I don't have it.
It would
if you,
be
if
fine.
you use the vented, is it called that blanket?
Benthic barrier, yeah, my dad put out, carpet. Like a roll of carpet in front of his dock, there's two types of carpet, one's floats and one sinks, I don't know if it's polyethylene or, there's two different types. One sinks, and so you get the kind that sinks and you can just roll it out in front of your dock or in the area where you are, and every year he just flips it over, he grabs 1 inch and just flips it over. Puts the stock in next to it the next year and flips it back, and so no weeds, where he's got the carpet. So, and he doesn't have to rake, it's easy, and it's probably no bigger than this room, the whole piece of carpet.
Wow,
So,
Doesn't sound easy.
and he bought it at like,
12 by 12.
I think like building
No way.
19, which was a thing, I
Oh,
guess,
yeah.
10 years ago, and he had the same piece of carpet for 10 years, he just keeps moving it and folding it over, and so there's ways to do it.
So that's preventing the growth because there's no sunlight?
There's no substrate.
Coach, did you
Preventing
need,
the substrate for it to grow.
do you need a permit for that though, or is that just again, if it's individual, you don't have?
You can't do that on town property, can you?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Bottom of the lake is owned by the town.
Yes, we can't really do it now because it's repair. Our guidelines say you can't do it.
We have certain styles, we have oriental.
So,
Yes.
yes, there may be something that you have to check with the other one.
I'm going to thank you.
Oh, you got it.
Well, but you know, yeah.
The question is what the alternatives are, and what I tend to find is. If you give some people some options and they, you say, well, I don't want 100 feet by 100 feet, but I'm willing to accept 30 feet by 30 feet, or pick something. Because people will do something and you won't know about it. And it will be HTH pool chemicals being thrown around the dock. That's what people do. And they brag about it when I go to the meetings. They're like, well, I just go to Walmart and buy a 5-gallon pail and chuck it out there. And so that's illegal. But people do it because they get frustrated. And so you have to give them options and work with people, or you're gonna end up having the renegades out there doing what they want because they don't wanna live around the lake with a bunch of weeds.
I'll just try to track it.
But,
So that's the challenge. with
with the benthic blanket though, you're also injuring all of the wildlife that would otherwise be living in the muck to be part of the lake ecosystem.
Just once. Then you keep flipping it over and putting it back on top of the empty space. So there's no repeated.
Right, but yeah, okay, but whatever space that is no longer is.
Oh, there's all sorts of stuff on the rug by the end of the summer. Because it fills up with mud. I mean,
Yeah,
there's boat traffic and algae deposition, and so there's a layer of sand or something on the carpet, and that's why you have to flip it every year to get that stuff off. To have fresh. Otherwise you get enough sand and now you got weeds growing in that, because the carpet is just, it's a, whatever that mesh is. The fiber lets the air and the gases out from the sediment.
As an open weed.
It's an open weed, but it doesn't, so things can move in and out like microbes, and little critters, benthos organisms, but not clams.
Yeah, but or not nymphs or flies or.
No, but they're all on top of it at the end. I mean, if they're in the lake, they're on top of the carpet because it's great habitat. It's about that thick and soft, and there's space.
But then you flip it over and you bury them all again.
Shake them on.
And
That's
okay, well,
It's up to you. It's up to you. You make the call.
But how does the surface?
No, and it's a lot of work.
But the
It's not
surface
like,
of the carpet must trap the seeds, so you're flipping them over so the seeds are caught on the top and they're on the bottom next year.
It doesn't matter. So, I mean.
No, but I'm saying is, if you don't flip it over, the
Yeah,
seeds
you'll
are,
eventually
the
grow.
seeds will grow in the carpet.
Yeah.
Carl, could you follow up with your suggested action plan relative to the development of drain? Whether you do it in the winter or early spring?
Well, it'd be more economical if we can do it sooner than
Yeah.
later.
No, I mean, just as a follow-up from this meeting, just send me a
Yeah.
estimate,
Absolutely.
and then we can share it in our next meeting, which has to happen sooner than later. We have 3 permits.
So would you suggest that we have a map made of our drainage?
If you can get me some idea of how many drains you have, that would be useful. If you can tell me where they are, that's even more useful.
Yeah.
So, because my estimate is dependent on how many you have. If you tell me I have 100, I'm not gonna get them all out every day. And it's, if you think about it, we have to target a storm. So they're storm ready, so, we have to get a few days of dry weather and then a reasonably good sized storm, or they don't flow. So particularly because of the swales, you get the infiltration. So if you can get a really decent sized storm, like it's supposed to be on Sunday. And I knew where the drains were, it was great. So. But if it happens in the spring, it happens in the spring.
Well, I think our next steps are, let's identify X number of
Yeah, if you
drains.
guys can
We
use
can do that
this time.
Yeah.
and send that to you and say this is where we're at and
That'd be perfect.
at your convenience, if we, as LMAC, agree to do
Right, well, I guess we'd have to be budgeting it and get the selectmen to approve it too, I
Yes.
guess.
Exactly. That's-
When's
So
that
we
happen?
have to identify the drains.
Yeah,
The budget process will be really January, February,
Yeah,
and then it's public meetings after that, March, April, and voted in May.
yeah, so
where are we with our budget? Do we have anything left over? That if
I'd
we
have to
were-
look.
Yeah.
I'll check that.
yeah, if we have some left over, otherwise we're really looking at next year's budget, unfortunately.
Mhm.
But we should definitely plan to be walking around
Yeah,
before the next storm.
Those
I mean,
wetlands have any?
I don't know whether we've closed the dam yet now, or we've.
The dam's open about 3 or 4 inches.
Yeah.
So I don't think we quite made it to -6 feet.
I don't think we
I
had
think
either.
we're -6 based on where my box.
Yeah, yeah, but we can still walk around, but you know, for
Yeah.
over the next couple of weeks, we ought to try to make that happen on an organized basis in some fashion.
yeah, if you can do that in the next couple weeks and then get them to me, I can get you a proposal with numbers before the end of January.
Okay.
And if we saw
Put that in your-
to be of immediacy, we could always ask the board to, depending on the cost. Depending on the.
Right, general fund,
General fund.
yeah. Yeah,
So we don't have to test
I mean,
everything.
I
at
think
once.
we're at a point where it's kind of a tipping point, at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like it's a tipping point. And next year, if we go through what we did this year in terms of here's more algae and we're closing down the lake or half the lake or whatever. We're telling people they can't swim. We were telling Route 87 or Donny Road, that it was all. Matter of fact,
So
we
what-
have to close down.
So it's pretty complicated because in front of my house, there's 4 or 5 drains around those houses and some of them go this way, some go that way.
Yeah.
And you know, they go. through
I-
Burgess'
There's also,
property and
there's
through
also,
Grant's
aban-
property.
there's also abandoned sewer pipes that come out through walls.
Say again,
There's abandoned sewer pipes. Years ago, when people
You mean
dumped
small-
everything in the lake,
oh, lovely.
oh yeah, there's some of those around too. I know I have one of my.
I mean, there's small holes here and there in
Yeah.
people's walls.
Well,
Usually those are for drainage for the wall, you hope.
Yeah,
theoretically, there's a stormwater subcommittee. Jimmy Santos and I are on it. I can't recall who else, but I think we should. Get a band of people together and try to get out there and make this happen, so that we can at least identify some of these.
So the idea would be to have a sampling of them,
Yeah,
15 of them or whatever.
at
With- with-
least double what we're doing now.
with the blue green algae scenario. We're gonna include next year's budget, the coring of the bottom to get some information on that, but is there anything more that we can be doing proactive at these times when we have these blooms
You
or?
guys are doing proactive things. You're monitoring, assessing, and you will have an early warning of when a group is coming. Like you could see it in the data that we had this year. You could see that, you know, all of a sudden the blue green went from single digit percentages up to 16% of the population, and then 28% was where we started to have call people complaining. So knowing that and looking at your data for next year and see, you'll know the challenges is what are you gonna do about it? If you get to a level where it's starting to threaten swimming.
Can we get some of those data charting earlier than at the end of the year? So we
Oh,
could,
yeah. We get it every month.
Well, we get it every month.
I don't see it.
There's a SharePoint, so we can give you the access. You can look at anything you want. I think,
Okay, so I've never
On SharePoint.
looked till the end of the year. Okay,
But
Okay.
they're short of telling people they can't swim, there's nothing more that we can be doing at this.
You could do an alum treatment, you could do a copper sulfate treatment, or you can
Rip it out.
grin and bear it.
Well,
There's not a lot of choice at that point. Once
Yeah.
the nutrient is in the water, the only way to stop the algae blooms from occurring is to kill the algae.
yeah, and I've seen that happen and then end up with a fish kill because you kill the algae and then the zooplankton eat and the bacteria eat what's left and they use all the oxygen in the water column.
I
Uh,
can guarantee you that if we do an alum treatment or copper treatment, we will not kill any fish. Guaranteed.
I think Henry's referring to the lake you told me.
Woodbridge Lake,
Yeah,
West Hartford.
When they do
Yeah,
that, is
they-
there a
they
limit
did
to access to the water?
With that,
When they put the.
just for the day of treatment. But they don't like to have people in the area while they're putting.
Like Tin Man?
No.
But you don't have to do the whole lake, you can do,
No, so when they do an if you're doing an algae treatment, there's different approaches. Copper is a material that they put in, and it essentially works by popping the cell wall of the algae. It's just like a balloon. If you think of a balloon going pop, all the nutrients that's in that algae cell is still right in your water column. The cell, which is the membrane around it, breaks off and sinks. But all the cells that didn't pop are there and going, ooh, look at all the free food available, and they just take right back off. So what happens is with a copper treatment, you get an algae growth, copper drops, and then it just starts growing again. Which is fine if you have an August, like every year you're getting this late August bloom, you kill it, and by the time it starts to get back September, October, it's too cold, too dark, the light's not as intense, and you don't really see a second bloom. So copper is a third the cost of alum. Very easy, they use it in water supplies all the time. Alum is also used in water supplies, but it works entirely differently. And there's different types of alum treatments, but for algae control, where you just have a bloom, they put in what's called a low dose alum treatment. It's at a very, very low number, and what it's doing is it's binding with the phosphorus in the water and stealing it from the algae, basically saying, we're not allowing the algae to grow, they can't bloom because there's no food available to them. So all that dividing of cells and growth stops as that alum strips whatever's in the water out and it settles to the bottom. Which is good, because now if you do that, if you have an algae bloom in June or July and you do an alum treatment, a low dose alum, there's no food in that water for the rest of the year. Unless you get dirty storm drains and your inlet's not too bad, but it has to been reintroduced. And then the next reintroduction is when your lake turns over in the fall, brings up all the nutrient rich water, and it's there for the next algae bloom next summer. So that cycle doesn't stop with the alum treatment, because you're just taking this year's phosphorus away from this bloom that's occurring.
and how much, let's say, per acre is a light alum treatment?
With an alum treatment, when we do it, we, like Indian Lake in Worcester, we used to treat it every year. They would do $8,000 to $12,000 for a 20 to 40 acre copper treatment. It would be 20 to 40 grand for an alum treatment. So there's a bit for doing that same area.
so you did parts of the lake.
They would just do sort of the central area of the lake. And that was all, or they didn't do everywhere. The lake was 150 acres and they do like 40 or 50 acres in the middle. And that water was when you're doing an alum treatment, because you're just trying to take the phosphorus out of the water to stop the blooms from occurring. So it doesn't matter when you take it along the shoreline or in the middle, you're just taking phosphorus away and it all mixes in that surface layer.
And how long are you taking it away?
Well, that's a function of the lake's flushing time. So your lake doesn't flush very quickly because it's got a very small watershed. So if you were to do a treatment, it would last you all summer. One alum treatment.
One L, but it not years, decades?
No. So then for a low dose alum.
Okay.
Low dose, you were saying was what, 20 to 30,000 for that?
40 acres.
For 40 acres.
Yeah,
So you cover 40 acres, but it spreads the whole.
It covers some of that. Copper, you'll actually go out and treat all the weed bed or the blooms where they're occurring. So they'll actually drive around in every cove and hit it, because they need to kill the cells that are there. Whereas the alum, they're just taking the nutrient and food away from the algae. So those are your two approaches. We can get you quotes, we don't do that work. So we are only scientists and permanent people, we're not, so I'm not selling anything that we do.
They took, they don't like to use copper bottom paint, you know, so, I mean, there are environmental.
Copper has
degre-
more
degradation.
environmental problems than alum, you are correct.
Yeah.
Because copper is a heavy metal, it builds up in the sediment of ponds.
Oh, God.
We have one in a lake that we don't manage, but it's in Westbrook, and we went to do dredging of the sediment because they had so much sediment. And their copper levels were so high that they had to treat the material as if it was solid waste to go to the lime landfill. Because it was just so full of copper from must have been 40 years of copper treatments. 3 or 4 a summer, every summer, they just, that's all they did. And then they switched to alum and then much better off.
Could you address Henry's issue with the alum and Woodbridge Lake?
Yeah, Woodridge Lake, I've worked on Woodridge Lake myself. 25 years ago, but I'm very familiar with it. The town did a study with an independent consultant. After they had their fish kill and determined that the people that did the work really messed it up. So it wasn't implemented properly. It was a mistake in the alum application. And I'm not trying to blame them or point fingers. That's what ended up happening in that case. And in the last 20 years, a lot's been learned about what to do with alum, how to apply it, how to manage. It's a pH fluctuation. That's really the issue that what kills the fish. If the pH gets too high, it kills it. So now they put in buffered solution so that they put a little sodium aluminate and aluminum hydroxide, and the two combine to keep the pH neutral. And they actually have much better equipment now, so when they're out putting it in, the outfit that does it in the area has 2 tanks, one for one material and one for the other material. On the boat, they're metered by computer. They have GPS positioning for the boat, so they know exactly where the boat is, and they do track lines with the GPS guidance, with the dose being allocated based on depth and based on pH measurements that the boat makes as they travel. And so they're monitoring 100% of the time as they're applying the alum in well-organized grids. So that wasn't available 20 years ago when they did Woodridge Lake. So, and the reason they had to put those types of equipment in is because killing fish is not good for business. You know, they had to figure out a solution, and they did.
So the pH level is changed by the alum somehow?
Well, aluminum,
What's our pH level? You know, how you measure our pH? Is it high, low?
it's right, it's not neutral. We have it in the data.
Yeah,
But
but I know my outdrives, they go bad every couple of years.
yeah, no, it's our pH in this lake is neutral. It's when it gets above 8.5 or 9,
Yeah.
then it starts to filter. So, or below 5, and so that's why they need to keep it really in that range, and really don't want to get it outside of 6.5 and 8. You know, you really want to keep it in that band, a little bit of fluctuation.
Henry, you're about to lose Mary. You're about to lose Mary.
My outdrive.
Yeah,
You'll lose your quorum. We need to talk about this, not that you're voting or anything, but you need to set another date.
I'm sorry,
Are others have?
I'm still looking.
Just you,
What's that?
just you.
Most everyone.
we need to decide when, we need to decide,
Don't get it summed up as always that might protect you. I don't.
we need to decide when,
I got an outright loss, so it's
I can spend 5 minutes, we can wrap up here.
yes.
We need a special meeting.
It's
We have
currently
permits
but outside it's just,
that people are
We know
waiting.
in marine environments that put
One is
electrodes
easy.
and capsules.
Yeah, we're control system.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And with the steps are okay. And you put the zinc on, people.
Once what?
Really?
In Zinga.
The boats in the water also.
And like,
Yeah.
Motor down.
actually,
Yeah.
Um,
it's
Even if I put those.
done deal. It's.
Should
extended
end
to,
this.
Lewis.
So I was always wondering if the DA twelve was higher.
We're recommending 2 feet.
But I think it was like talking to the shops and more.
And give them enough so that we're on to
It's in the
town
in
hitting
the water and like we have.
And Jim Santos, who
Yeah.
was next door, was on the subcommittee.
So if the DH side, definitely, there's more,
And
they can, more electricity.
they both.
More basic.
agree. They all-
No, it doesn't,
So that,
it's not
2
related
feet,
to
they
no
eliminate
connectivity.
or it's a little electricity.
It's unjust. It's related. to
We
the
can't, it
acidity,
has to
so
be
the lower pH is
by
more
us
acidic,
and then the board of selectmen.
and the higher pH is more basic, like baking soda.
okay. So, yeah, so.
We have-
I know there's a set.
Motions.
Yeah,
ready to go.
You can't do it.
I know, but we get- but at least you can take it home and read the
Yeah.
motion.
But then you're not parked out front of an outfall.
Bob, Jim.
Hey, Kenny, why don't you end this meeting?
Yeah.
We did that. We-
You're gonna lose Mary.
We gotta, before we lose our quorum, we gotta move on, but thank you very much, we appreciate it.
First, let's, please, Carl, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We will be following.
Thank you.
Did you want your,
Sunrise.
is that this one?
Do we get a printed version of that?
That's yours.
Oh, that's my mouse.
Yes, I have it, here. I can send it to you. I just got it
Thank
this
you.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Since I was working this afternoon. It didn't
I
happen.
agree.
Thank you,
Hey.
Carl, so much.
Carl, would you email that to the town?
We really should.
Yeah,
We really-
it's actually loaded up on your website now.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're all set.
No,
Thank
absolutely.
you, everyone.
No,
Bye, Mary.
thank you, Carl. I'll call you tomorrow. I'm sorry, I've got 3 things going on at the same time. I think we need a special meeting. These permits started in October and we had to go back and revise in November. And now if we delay until January, some people already have masons lined up, things ready to go. And, I would ask that we get a special quick meeting, everybody read the motions. These are pretty, and Jim, Bob, and I went out and redid site visits, remeasured. And these are pretty standard now. Everything's within quote unquote original location. The only issue is Karen Lewis, they wanted to go out 4 feet and, to prevent any additional property extension, because I think it already exists because of that high shape. And they gave us a map, which we use their wetlands. Jim Santos, who lives next door, felt that that was needed because he has to raise his engine going in and his dock is way further out. So 2 feet at least helps them because their pontoon tubes, when they load people, are hitting the lake bed when it's at baseline. And I measured, it was +2 above baseline water level, and they only had 31 inches. That's not a lot, 31 inches. Our draft is 33 for our end. So, you'd be hitting bottom every night. So I did just ask that we could have a quick Zoom, everybody read the motion. If there are any questions, we handle it, and we get these people on their merry way.
So Mayor, we used to just go by the subcommittee. We never used to vote on all of these things like this. Subcommittee would go and say,
I'm happy to.
the next
to do
week,
that.
they had like,
That was the reason for the subcommittee.
right, so that they had to do this quick.
But we-
Unless it's a contentious type of thing, then the
Right.
subcommittee. would
Yeah,
bring it
well,
to-
But we've taken what was contentious
Right.
into not
Right.
contentious.
Well,
So if you read
Yeah,
it-
I would say that I think when we had this discussion before and things came back, I think that was it Went or Want?
Yeah.
Want, they needed to come the first time. It probably didn't need to come the second time. The Lewis one did need to come to the committee because it was going beyond
Right.
the regulations, and it still is beyond the regulations, so it needs to be,
The Lewis one?
yeah, the Lewis one. And it still, it sounds reasonable, and I'm sure it's gonna get approved, but because it went beyond, it's gotta be discussed by the group. The single one is an administrative approval.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so I'm happy to tell the subcommittee to create a letter to the board for once and insignias, excuse me. And, the board, then can bless it on December 19th. As I said, it's kind of our fault because we didn't have a minutes, and we shouldn't let something proceed.
That leaves Lewis to need to have a meeting. We do need to have,
Well, then we should have a quick Zoom meeting to discuss the real estate.
okay, but
The
so when,
subcommittee is recommending not a 4-foot extension, a 2-foot extension.
when can we get,
If you can do it any morning, I'm available.
Can you-
Afternoons,
can-
evenings, I'm not available.
Can we just do a, poll? Can't we just vote electronically?
No.
Have a meeting?
you have to have a meeting?
Well, any morning I'm available. Afternoons and evenings are tough for me.
Well, we will probably cut you out of, the, forum then at that point, because I gotta believe that there are people that are working that we need to have to get a quorum.
Well, we're talking 15-minute Zoom meeting. I don't think for one item. I'm happy to try to participate.
Well, the decisions are made by the select.
Yes.
It's our recommendation to
They go by our recommendation.
Yes.
So it's.
How much time do we need to, post and so forth,
24
have a
hours.
special meeting?
If I post it tomorrow morning, you can have it Friday
We have
morning.
something Friday or Saturday morning.
You do it Saturday, people aren't working.
Hmm?
Do it Saturday,
And
people are not
most
working.
people don't work on Saturdays, just me, but it's not till the afternoon. This is what I.
Why don't we try to see if we can, confirm that we can have a quorum on, Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And if we get a response back that people can make it to get a quorum, we'll get the meeting called and have that,
24 hours out.
I think you need the subcommittee on the Zoom, at least one of us.
Yeah.
My-
So you're asking for a quorum Saturday morning?
yeah,
For 15 minutes.
you can make the Saturday morning, or something.
I could make Saturday morning.
Yeah.
I won't work till 2 o'clock on Saturday.
I'll be on the road.
This,
If I could get through it while I drive.
Yeah, just
Call the
call
number.
and,
Yeah, I'm doing.
That works.
I'm sorry, I'm late for another meeting.
Okay.
I'm late 3 times today.
okay, is Karen Lewis still on?
Yes.
So your basic, the recommendation is 2 feet instead of 4.
Karen?
Yeah,
That's not my wife.
Karen, I texted her.
Yes, I was muted, sorry. I am back on, thank you.
Okay, have you heard the conversation, about the permits?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so we're going to be having hopefully a special meeting at 10 on Saturday. You'll have to monitor the town's webpage to know whether that comes to pass, but the subcommittee is also recommending that your plan be limited to 2 additional feet.
Mine died.
Right, I did hear that. Yes, thank you.
And is that acceptable to you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, well then, you can attend that meeting, but just know that there's probably a good chance that's the way it's gonna go, but you should attend that meeting if you attended this meeting and sat through all that you did.
Well, it was interesting. Actually, I did
It was
enjoy the
very
report.
informational, I'm sure, yes. Okay, so then, Bob, we should talk briefly about, even though we're now below a quorum and it's not an official meeting anyway, and we can't make any decisions, but we could at least understand where we're at with the ordinances.
No, just
Can
before
you
we
vote
go,
in advance? Because I may not.
before we go to the ordinances,
No, the voting doesn't count as a-
the agenda, will these be the recommendations on the,
There would be,
Yes.
yes.
on the agenda?
The agenda would just be those 3 permits.
So those 3
Unless we want
applications,
Something for the ordinances.
This one would be Lewis. The other 2 are being handled by the subcommittee,
Okay,
because they meet the requirements.
okay, so we're just gonna have the Lewis property on this.
Yeah.
One application. Karen Lewis, okay. Okay, go ahead.
All three will be on the board of selectmen.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
We just have to vote on.
Thank you, Doc.
Lewis.
okay. Okay, I'm done.
Want to talk about this? Okay, I handed out a copy of something that our committee's been working on, the last bit that the Board of Selectmen has asked us input for, and that's on the grandfathering clause. And what Henry has done is put together in conjunction with, I think, the town attorney.
Pardon?
The town attorney also works
Yes.
on this.
Yes.
So if you look at the first page, which is black with blue, the whole thing, including the blue strikeout, is the thing that Henry and the town attorney proposed. I was talking with Mary a little bit about it when Henry sent it out, and we thought it was a little bit legalese, and we wanted to maybe simplify it a little bit. So Mary didn't have time to do it, so I took a whack at it today. And all the things in blue that are struck out are the things that I suggest taking out. And then the second page is actually the finished product without the blues, just so it's easier to read. But I think Henry and I talked earlier today about it. And we thought, you know, if we wanted to talk more about it tonight at the meeting, get some input, I thought we'd just here.
Well, we don't
So
have-
let me just go through it, my suggestions.
Well, why don't we hold at this point?
Okay.
Because of the fact we don't have enough people here, we're only gonna have to go through them
Okay.
again. And so I think we should probably put them on the Saturday agenda, because we want this to go to the selectmen on the 19th,
That's true. That's true.
unfortunately.
Okay, Mark, can you put this on the agenda as well? Let's do it.
And
Regulation.
we're at regulation H,
Yeah.
section 195E.
And for those people reading it, let me just add, I agree with Bob's background, what he's had to say. We were also told to make it airtight. And so we made it airtight. And the changes introduce potential opportunities for somebody to have an extra day in court or to appeal or whatever. There would be two things that I would say when you're looking at this, that I would ask people to focus on. One is in 3, where item D has been crossed out. You may want to consider keeping D in there. And then the other thing in the final paragraph where is now suggesting we limit, you know, the penalty for violation of the provision is loss of coverage and immediate need to remove it from the lake, as opposed to getting 3 strikes. And that's okay too, but I would say that it would be best to also add just in a little caveat to say that in the event of violation of this section, the other section with respect to fines is not applicable, and that this is the only
Because it would contradict the other section.
yes, so that we don't end up having you know, a technical debate about the fact the guy said, well, I should have been fined as opposed to thrown off the lake type of thing. And so that would be, that would be the only tweak on that.
Right, I think that's a good suggestion. I just think, you know, this is a special privilege that we're giving people, and
Yeah,
they know about it.
yeah.
Well, can you make those changes? So
Well, I don't want to do that until we've had the discussion.
but it's
because-
hard to do it verbally on a telephone Zoom
Well, we're
meeting.
going Zoom. Right? How we're gonna do Zoom?
Oh, you do a normal Zoom.
Yeah, normal Zoom.
The other thing that could make this more readable, and I had toyed with doing it before, but I didn't want it to look too long, was in 3, where it's divided down into the A, B, C. It's now at least going to be A, B, C, and maybe we something gets added back or not, but those could be separate paragraphs under that so that they could be indented and then.
Easier to read.
Yeah, and then readability with the eye would
Yeah.
make it not, they glaze over
Yeah,
because
that's
they're like,
that's a tough paragraph. because
Yeah.
It's got A, B, C, D. and E.
yeah,
I
but
think
if
that's a
it,
good idea.
yeah,
So can I gotta, the whole thing comes down to I. Because it says if you can't, if it's already in compliance, what are you trying to prove? It says here it has to have been in compliance, what the
Yeah,
grandfather
well-
part comes in.
that's
well,
what
it's
the
in
concept of
compliance
overlay.
with the old law. If you're in compliance with the old law prior to November 2, you're gonna be grandfathered under the new law where the regulations have changed.
The best
But
example,
what has changed?
the length of boats.
We didn't have,
It's the length of both, that's the
A
only
couple,
thing.
there's a couple of other changes too, but that's the major.
that's the major change, and there is some. A stronger definition of houseboat, shall we say?
Right.
And-
I see what you mean now, I see what you mean now, but it said, to me, I didn't realize you were talking about the the changes, because
Yeah.
it was in compliance, then why?
Yeah, it's in compliance, if you were in compliance with the old law, the new, and you stay, then you're grandfathered under the new one.
No, that makes sense to me now.
Okay.
We can't put a law into place that penalizes somebody.
So now, the other thing is, it says, we take the boats off the lake every winter, that. Now the boat's out, does that mean it's out?
No,
No, if you go back,
No, what I
as
mean,
long
that's
as it's
what I'm
the same owner,
Yeah,
the same owner,
and he can put it back,
and he doesn't modify the boat.
right,
so we're only really talking about the pontoon boat, that's it.
Well,
The big-
well, yeah, unless there's some other boat that we don't know of that's. 26 or more than 24.
or maybe
feet
a
long.
26.5 foot pontoon boat, I don't know.
Yeah,
Right,
but that's the only,
That's really the glaring.
possibility, because everything else is, pretty much known to be in compliance, and we're not making any recommendation changes on the horsepower thing, so there's no grandfathering there.
I saw a 36 footer for sale like that the other day, when it was a rat, it wasn't like that, it was that cheap.
All right, do you wanna end our meeting?
Yes, well, we'll just, I don't think we need a motion, I think we're just informally close out,
Wait, the meeting
this meeting, and
at 8:58.
Mark, can you have